Interesting news from Sega this week. An announcement has been made. It is the 10th anniversary of Alien Isolation, and a sequel is now in quote unquote early development at Creative Assembly. And yeah, they're going to be working on a sequel. There's not much more in terms of detailage beyond that. But I'm interested in what you guys make of it, and also the legacy, obviously, of the first game, which I think people kind of realized its greatness at launch, but it now is, well, what can you say, an established classic, right, Alex?
100%. I think a lot of people look fondly back at this game and they really respect everything it did. Visually, audio wise, I also think the gameplay was brilliant for the era when it came out. And them saying they are finally working on a sequel, I think it is a little bit sad that it is coming so late, for a variety of reasons, rather than maybe having come out years ago with the same team. But it is nice to see because, survival horror like this game was in a first-person perspective isn't always too common, and especially the Alien franchise, which I think is just a perfect setting for video games. It's really good for it. I'm really excited to see what they're going to do. But at the same time, I'm a little skeptical about it capturing the magic of the first game. The magic of the first game was partially a group of really, really nerdy people who loved Alien and the special team within Creative Assembly who did not make first-person games, right? Assembled to make one using its own technology, which was, I think, really... It pioneered actually a lot of things later games would do. And, you know, just from like when you read about how like they got the Fox intro by replaying VHS tapes and stuff over and over again to break it down, like, and all the sounds and visuals from the film in that movie, it's brilliant. And I'm not sure if they can necessarily capture that magic. And technology wise, I'd be curious what they do, because Creative Assembly left that engine as it was and didn't work on it after the fact. And nowadays, reviving all the processes that existed to make that game, probably not worth it. I imagine they might run with Unreal, for example. And I'm not sure if I'd want that, actually, interestingly enough. Ooh. I don't know, John, how do you feel?
Yeah, I'm 100% on board with you. And I think this is what's going to make a sequel difficult, as it was right time, right place, right people. That really respected the source material in a way. And hopefully if they are doing this, as they say, they'll actually staff up in that way again, find those people. So I'm sure those types of people will hopefully seek them out as well. But yeah, the engine stuff, like you say, Alien Isolation is one of the most impressive looking games of that era, and I would argue it still looks amazing today. It's only really let down by the anti-aliasing techniques. At least the Switch version got TAA, which was cool. But like just the materials quality, like it was perfect. They absolutely nailed it. It has that almost analog film look to it at time as well. Like people always complain about chromatic aberration, for instance, but that's a case where I actually say it works. Like the game benefits from it. It gives it that somewhat lo-fi look that is just beneficial to it. And then the game itself, it's very tense. And it's not just the alien tracking you by any means that's scary. Like things like the Working Joe will forever stick with me. Just their weird plasticine face.
Terrifying.
The way they march around. Like to me, that's like, oh man, this is like the kind of experience that the System Shock 2 gave me back in the day, where there's some sort of enemy in the environment that doesn't have any sort of like normal thinking, emotional sort of capacity. It's just like a machine that is there, and it is looking for you at times. And you're like very carefully moving around that environment while trying not to disturb them because your resources are so limited. And it's this tension of like exploring the station while staying out of trouble. That was so compelling, and just like the amount of the way they designed that world, the encounters throughout it, the storytelling, the whole experience, the sound. It's unbelievable. And I genuinely think that making a proper sequel to this is going to be extremely challenging. Whoever's tackling this within Creative Assembly, they have a gigantic amount of work cut out for themselves. I hope they can realize it. I hope they understand what this actually entails. I would like to think they would. The fact that it's being announced 10 years later like this, to me, suggests that there probably is a passionate group of people that are like, we really want to follow this up. We want to do something with this again. Otherwise, they probably wouldn't bother. Like, this doesn't seem like Sega would be like, yeah, we need to get these guys working on this right away. It's more like somebody within the team was like, I want to do this. They pitched it. They're like, all right, this sounds good. They convinced Sega that they can do it. And now it begins. So,
yeah.
In that sense, I do have some hope.
Well, what do you want to see from it, John, in terms of gameplay?
The main thing I would like to see is sort of an expansion on the Alien sort of AI. Like, they're going to have to come up with another purpose for it. It can't just be like another exact ship like that you're exploring. Although I think a ship should be part of it. Maybe take it down to a planet surface at some point, back up into a ship. I don't know. The environment will have to change a bit, but the AI, though, I think there was a lot of scripting stuff, like magic happening, which is fine with the Alien, but I would like to see them. I don't know. There's just been a lot of research done in terms of computer interactions and AI and everything in the past decade that I'd be curious to see if they could leverage that in some interesting ways to do something with the Alien character. And maybe, but I'm also want to see more threats. Like, I love those working Joes, as we said, and the other things you faced. I'm sure they can come up with some other new threatening things that are hopefully just as terrifying and interesting to face off against. I just want to see that sort of experience and relive that sort of horror-like experience again in a new way. And I hope they can pull it off.
Yeah.
Alex?
I mean, tech-wise, I would love to see the same approach to just like a unification of lighting and shadowing. That game I thought was brilliant. It was so far ahead and referenced years after the fact as a result of that from many developers. And I would love to see that on a gameplay perspective. I'd actually love to see them actually taking over those systems from the first game, which worked really well, and expanding on them even more. One of the things I loved in the first game was how, like, when you'd bring out a weapon, like the really cool revolver that the game has, there would be like a readied animation, and then you'd ready the weapon and then shoot it and then reload each like cartridge one by one. And I thought that added a lot to the game's tension, making it's not just plug and play and shoot, like you actually had to think while shooting. And that carried across to a lot of the environmental interactions. Like when you had to open a door, it required like a certain like arc movement of the mouse. I played on PC. I only know what that was like, but you had to like arc the mouse and like hit certain buttons in a combination to get things to work. And if you're running from something like the Alien, the tension buildup was huge. I would like to see that expanded even more and more environmental interaction than the first game, because using the space station or whatever you find yourself on as a weapon or way to move around, kind of ImSim like, I think would enhance that survival against something that is much more powerful and threatening than you in a direct conflict. So yeah, like John said, though, AI, make that thing scary and have senses that you have to plan around.
Okay. Well, we've had an announcement that it is in development, but how long games take to develop. So when we actually get to play it, who knows? But I'm sure we're going to be really looking forward to what Creative Assembly are cooking up there.